What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with Mekanism, and today, guys, we're going to be messing around with the Induction Matrix, which is Mekanism's highest tier of power storage. Now, this one's a little bit different than all of the different energy cubes that we've been using up until now, just because it is a multi-block structure and it is infinitely expandable. So there are some minimum requirements to actually construct this. It does require an outer casing, no matter what the size is, and it does require at least one induction cell and one induction provider of any of the tiers. But once you have that, you can just infinitely expand upon it. So as you progress through the mod pack that you're playing with, or just this mod if you're using it, you can just keep on expanding it, get better internal storage, get better output rates. You can do all of that just as you get more resources. So it is really awesome, completely customizable, and it's going to be a lot nicer than using a bunch of different energy cubes. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to go over today, and I just kind of breezed over a couple of the main points, but there is a lot of stuff that we need to do, because if you don't know, to actually craft the induction cells or the induction providers, you need lithium dust. So we haven't really touched upon getting lithium yet, and we'll be using it later on in the future, but essentially the way you get lithium is by taking brine and putting that in like you would with the water we've been doing into a thermal evaporation plant, and then the output becomes lithium. So I don't really need to mass produce lithium at this point. We do need to use a chemical crystallizer on lithium to get the lithium dust, but my plan is to take the advanced fluid tank that I've had with brine in it, and I've already set up a very small thermal evaporation plant. We're going to pull the brine out of this, put it into there. It's not really hot, so I may have to wait a little bit for it to process. Then we're going to pull the lithium out and we're going to throw it into a chemical crystallizer. So I'm going to dump off a little bit of this junk that we have right here, just try and clean up my inventory a little bit, because we do have to do a lot of crafting. That is going to involve a lot of energy tablets, and those take up a lot of space. But all this stuff right over here should look relatively familiar if you watched last episode, because we are again crafting the chemical crystallizer, and that's really all we need to craft right now. So we will do that really quick. Now, this is really the only difficult thing to get for the induction matrix itself. That's the only reason I've held off until now. But we have the chemical crystallizer, we have our brine, we've got our mechanical pipes, so we actually should be good to head to the back room and set this all up. So I did set up the thermal evaporation plant right back here. It's really small. It is being heated a little bit and kept at a slightly higher temp by a very low heater that is right over there on the side. But this should be perfectly fine to just process a little bit of brine. So I'm actually going to set it up with the brine over here, so we can throw that down. We can get out the mechanical pipe, throw that down there, and then we just have to change the mode on this so that it's actually outputting into here, and this should now be producing lithium. So you can see, not producing it super fast, there's not a ton of brine in here, but we really don't need a ton for what we're doing today, because we're only going to be making the minimum induction matrix, which is going to be one induction cell, one induction provider, so that means that we're going to need 8 dust total. So then we can worry about the chemical crystallizer. Now I'm going to try and keep this relatively compact, just because there's a lot of stuff going on back here, and as you can probably see running over here, we do get a little bit of an FPS drop because there's so much going on in this one area. Not much I can do about that, but right over here we can throw the chemical crystallizer down, and it's a little bit weird because we're going to have to reorient it. So I think what we're going to do is break this block right here, and we can throw it down, and it should connect to that power right there. Now this is backwards, okay, because the input is always going to be on the left side when you throw it down. So we actually need to rotate this. So let's see if we can switch this to rotate. And I think that should have fully rotated it for us. Okay guys, so we're back. I did have to do a little bit of work because I completely forgot about one crucial thing. So when we get the lithium out of here, it is liquid lithium. We cannot use liquid lithium in the chemical crystallizer. We need just regular lithium. So we can turn liquid lithium into regular lithium using the rotary condensator. So I had to make one of these, and it's just kind of like one final step before we can get this done. So this should be good to go once I set this to pull out. So if we change this, oh, I flipped past it. Okay, there we go. So if I set this to pull out, it should pull it in here, and we might need to flip the operation. So there we go, we've got liquid lithium, it's decondensating into regular lithium, kind of slow. Now it's coming in here, and this is producing lithium dust. So this is going a little bit slower than the actual input is going, but we will have more than enough lithium dust once this is done. So that's the setup. It required me to expand a little bit over here, and I didn't even have another factory block to put down up there, but I feel like this is a great time while I'm waiting for the next 6 of these to finish to actually bring up a certain topic. So a lot of you guys have been bothered by the fact that there are torches everywhere. So I have a couple different possibilities as to how I could fix this. I've been thinking about fixing it using glowstone, but I was a little disappointed when I saw that I could not chisel glowstone anymore. I know there was a way that you used to be able to chisel glowstone into this really awesome glowstone block that was just like a clean, solid textured block that would light stuff up. I really like that, and I would love to use it as like a lamp just in the ceiling, but that is not an option anymore. So that one's kind of thrown out the window. There are a couple lamps that we have that we can use in here to light it up, but it's like, if you look at it right here, it's like a white glow panel. I don't know how bright that makes things. Aside from that, really, there's not a ton that we can do. So I think there might be one other light up block. I think it's like a plastic. One of these is supposed to be white, like glowing plastic blocks. But yeah, aside from that, there's really no other option unless I want to get something like micro blocks, which I was intending on getting eventually because it allows you to cover up the pipes nicely. But if I get that, then I can just do the glowstone nooks, and that'll kind of get rid of a lot of the stuff around the base, and it might look a little bit nicer. So feel free to let me know what you guys think about that. I know a lot of people have commented on that in both of the Surviving With series, and I've been trying to get rid of it, but you know, it's not as easy as it may seem. Okay, so we've got the 10 lithium dust, and that really didn't use up a ton of the lithium. Emptied it out of here, but oh, actually, oh wow, okay, so we actually came relatively close to using up the lithium that we've got. Luckily, it wasn't a lot of brine. We can bring more over here if we need it, and eventually we'll have a full thing for producing lithium. Okay, yeah, we're past the lag now. That one area, the 5 times ore processing area, causes a fair bit of lag for me. Okay, so now we come back into this chest over here. Oh yeah, another thing, really quick. I know I'm going off on a lot of tangents, but liquid lithium buckets are upside down. Just the thing I'd like to note. A couple of the fluids from Mekanism do go upside down when you put them in a bucket. I thought that was a little funny, so I wanted to show you guys, so I bucketed out some. So the next recipes that we're going to be working with are going to be the induction cell and the induction provider. So we're going to be doing the basic ones. So if we go to induction, it's right over here. And before we start crafting them, I'm going to talk about them a little bit. So to actually construct the induction matrix, you're required to have one induction cell, which is going to give you an internal capacity. This one is 1.0 gigajoules. That's the lowest capacity, so it is a very large capacity. And of course, if you had 2 of these in there, it would be a capacity of 2 gigajoules. All of that. You may notice it also has stored energy, because if you were to break one of these while it's inside your induction matrix, it will retain the power it has. So if you're shifting things around, if you're moving it and you have a ton of power, do not worry, you're not going to lose out on that at all. Then you go up to the next one, 8, 64, 512, and that's the highest it gets, the ultimate induction cell. And each of these is going to be an upgrade of the previous one. So you can see the recipe does shift a little bit, but you're going to be using a lot of these to make the next tier, which is why I do not expect that I will be upgrading this for the foreseeable future. Now, it's the same way with the induction provider, except these give output rates. So you do need one of these. This will allow for 64 kilojoules to be outputted. The recipe is a little bit different. It uses control circuits instead of the energy tablets like this. So it's actually a little bit less annoying to make, but it does get expensive, obviously, when you go up to the ultimate one using ultimate control circuits and such, but you can go all the way up to 32.76 megajoules for the output. I know I said one time millijoules when I read that, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. I've gotten reamed out so much for that one mistake. I always mess up the prefixes on those. But yeah, so these are the ultimate ones. This is the highest you can get. But the nice thing is you don't need to use the ultimate induction cell. You could just make a bunch of smaller ones. Not that it'd be as effective, but if you really wanted to, you can make a bunch of smaller ones, combine them. So you can do all of that, and you can combine these. Once you get one of each, you can combine as many as you'd like. So you can have one induction provider and 25 induction cells if you want a big capacity, but don't need a big output. So just something to keep in mind. Now, the induction casing is what you have to put all around it. So you need induction casing surrounding the whole thing, and then 2 of those need to be induction ports, one for input, one for output. So the bigger you make it, the more of these you're going to need, but they're relatively cheap. That's where all of these energy tablets are going to go. So we can grab out all this good stuff right here, and we can start crafting it, because rambling on about it is not as effective as actually showing you guys how it works. So I believe for today's, which is going to be 4 by 3 by 3, which is the smallest you can make, and that's including the induction casing. So of course that leaves 2 spots inside left for you to put down your 1 induction cell and 1 induction provider. I believe we're going to need 36 induction casing, which will leave us with 32 blocks once we craft the induction ports. So this is a little bit annoying because you have to use any crafting with energy tablets is a little bit annoying just because you have to drag and drop. I'm sure you guys remember when I was crafting the solar panels, it was actually easier to come back up here and shift click them in every single time. Okay, so I want to make sure I don't use the last 4. I actually almost got carried away and crafted too many, but the nice thing is that the recipe for the induction port is going to give you 2, so you only have to do that once. It requires an elite control circuit and the 4 induction casings, so it's a little expensive, but you only need 2 of those, so even no matter how big you make it, you're only going to need those 2, so that's pretty nice. The next recipe is going to be the induction cell, so we're going to craft that one right here. It requires the 4 lithium dust, 4 energy tablets, and a basic energy cube, so we're going to grab that one out. And then we're going to craft the basic induction provider. Now, this is going to be a way higher output than I actually need, but that's perfectly fine because my plan is to eventually, I was going to put it at that wall right there, but there's actually, if we mine through here, I'll show you guys what's in here. We actually have my hopper timer that I use for the crusher on this mob farm. So eventually I will move this somewhere behind all these bins over here, but for the time being it stays there specifically because guys with armor that fall do not die all the time and witches just take forever to kill. So it's actually got like 3 stacks of items in it, or 2.5 stacks of items for the timer. It's a really long timer, but eventually I'll move that and we'll put the induction matrix over here, but for now it's going to go right over here. And another note, the reason I'm doing this now also is because we're going to be making this zombie flesh into biofuel, which is going to go into ethylene, and then that is going to go to the gas burning generator. And because we get so much of it, I haven't been on here much, but I've gotten a ton of it. We're actually going to have a significant source of power outside of wind generators, which is what I'm using right now for the base. So just something to note about why I'm actually doing this now, aside from just being able to produce lithium. But now we need to get into constructing this. So we can grab all this stuff out, and I've had a hard time deciding how I want to actually make this, but I think the way I want to do it is to put it up against this wall right here, and eventually I'll just come in here and mess around with the inputs and the outputs. And you know, no. We'll do it. We'll do it so it looks a little weird. It's going to bother my OCD because right here there's a 4 wide gap, and I was thinking we'd make it so it's, you know, input here, output here, and then it's 4 long, but I think we're actually going to do it 4 long in this direction, just so it's easier to see the inputs and the outputs. So what we can do is induction casing all the way along the outside. So we're going to do it 4 long and then 3 wide, and we're just going to build up on the sides like so, and circle around, and just enclose this whole thing in these kind of gross white blocks. Okay, so here we have it right now. So this is the external casing, and hopefully you can start to see why such a, I guess it's not a big multi-block structure, but why a structure that's 4 by 3 by 3 is only going to be able to hold one of each of these, because throwing these around and having to have the entire thing surrounded by either a port or one of the induction casings actually makes it kind of big for, you know, the amount of internal stuff you're going to have. You might see Wayla, these have thermal evaporation blocks, so yay for Wayla again. But we can throw down a port back there, and you know, if we try and click on this, it's not going to do anything because it hasn't formed yet. So we can throw down the induction provider, we can throw down the induction cell, and we can throw down the last induction port. Now if we click on it, you would have gotten particle effects if I had particle effects on, but I turned those off just because I need better performance with this mod. No offense to whoever made this mod, but this thing makes my computer just crap the bed, and I have a relatively good computer. Right now I suspect it's a CPU bottleneck because I have a 970, so my graphics card's not an issue, and Minecraft gets pretty CPU intensive, but yeah, that's, you know, particles are off because if I look over here, you can see I get, you know, like 20 FPS. Over here I get 30. So yeah, so now we can actually look at this. You don't need to click on any specific blocks to actually get in there. 0 input, 0 output. But what we can do is we can look at the statistics. So matrix statistics give you a little bit more specific on what's going on in there. So again, you can see the input out of the total, output out of the total ability, and then you can see what's actually being stored in there. I suspect that is from what we crafted with the basic energy cube, because one of them has some energy in it, so that might actually be from that. But it's receiving 0, outputting 0. It tells you the dimensions, so 3 by 3 by 4, and it actually tells you what it consists of. So we've got 1 cell and 1 provider. Now this is great when you actually get into making these huge constructions of this thing, because it can be infinitely expanded. So it's pretty cool to look and be like, hey, I've got 101 cells in here. That's pretty awesome. If you just want to, you know, brag a little bit about how expensive it was to make. So that's something to note. Now, one thing you do have to be very, very not careful about, but you have to be aware of is that when you construct this, every time you construct it, you are going to need to swap around one of these to output. Okay, so it turns red. It's normally green. It turns red, and I've seen countless, just because on pretty much every kind of, modded Minecraft forum that you can see, where people ask, why am I not able to pull stuff out of this? If you left it as green, you would not be able to pull anything out of it because it's both inputting. So you have to remember to turn it to red. It's pretty obvious once you know that that's something you have to do. But if you're looking at this and you think, a port should be able to input or output, it's kind of, it's something important that you need to know because a lot of people have issues with that. So we'd be inputting in the back there and outputting out the front here. So I'm actually going to break this, and something that you can note is right now, if you look at these in here, we could expand upon this. You could actually construct this if we weren't making the minimum one right now. If we had extra room in here, let's say we've got 4 of these cells, just a theoretical example. If we've got 3 cells, 1 provider, we could actually break one of the cells and we could reconstruct this without it being completely full, and it would still function as long as there's just air there. Okay, you don't want to put down another induction casing in there, anything like that, but you can break it and you can move stuff and you can leave it a little empty if you want to make 2 of these and split them up a little bit, all that good stuff without having any issue. And again, you can break one of these and keep the energy in it as you're transporting it, so that's really great. But just keep in mind, this is the smallest one you can make, but you can of course make bigger. A lot of mod spotlights that I've seen, they think it's really fun to go and try and build the biggest one they can, and of course that's just to show an example of how big it can get. Eventually when we get into reactors and stuff, it will be useful to have a very big one, but I've never seen one that actually hits the quote-unquote maximum space for it, because I do not believe there is one. So if one of you guys manages to find out there is a maximum space on these for how big they can be, feel free to let me know, but don't kill yourself trying to do that. So I guess it is time to fill in the area over here and we can call it a day. We're not actually going to be hooking this up today just because I do have to do a little bit of shifting stuff around. I don't think I'm going to keep it there. I'm going to move it over here. And what I'm actually going to do is have a power source inputting in the back, and then this is going to output to a bunch of Entanglo porters, which are going to put power to all the different places around here. And I think I'll move the wind generators that are currently dropping down back there and put them into here. So yeah, I think this is actually probably one of the most useful things we've made so far. A lot of you guys have been asking for this, so hopefully you found the video at least slightly useful. If you found it entertaining or informative in any way, please feel free to give it a like, as it does help me out a lot. And just a side note, I do want to apologize before the end of this video for some of the lag that I do get when running around the base and looking over in this direction. Hopefully it doesn't ruin the videos too much. I hate not having 30 FPS, but it sits at 20 and it's kind of, I don't really know. I'm messing around with settings trying to get it to be a little bit better. I'll do my best, but hopefully it doesn't bother you guys too much. I will try and stray away from staring over there that much. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I will talk to you later.